What's going on, everyone? I am Double D, and welcome to the Double D Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel DeForest, and here we are to the post-race news. So once again, Chase Briscoe would start on pole. He would start in first. Right beside him would be Bubba Wallace, and we had some notable drivers starting up in the back. You had Denny Hamlin that wrecked in qualifying. Chase Elliott did not have a good qualifying, so you would watch them throughout the day work their way towards the front. So then the race would go on. And also, it just seems like Chase Briscoe is getting so many poles recently. I have lost count of how many times he has started in first. He's really the Rocket Man 2.0. The race would be underway, and Chase Briscoe would lead the first 15 laps. Reddick would make a move for second to try to chase behind Chase Briscoe, but then the caution would come out for Ross Chastain, putting a bad block on Michael McDowell, and he would bring out the first caution. And early in the Brickyard 400, you would already see drivers trying to pull different types of strategies. Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, and Josh Berry would stay out, and they would be ahead in the lead when everybody else pitted. Austin Cindric would take the lead, and he would keep the lead for most of the restart, and you would see later on Michael McDowell and Noah Gragson would have tire issues. Interesting thing about these tire issues, none of them would bring out a caution, which I found pretty shocking, but NASCAR actually stayed pretty consistent with it with not throwing these cautions. But before the stage would end, of course, those guys that pitted earlier would pit, and that would give Chase Briscoe back the lead, and he would win stage one. More strategy would come into play as you would see Ryan Preece and Alex Bowman stay out. So they would be out in front of the field for a few laps, and they would have to pit. That would give the lead back to Austin Cindric. And as I was saying, he was leading a good amount of laps today. But bad luck would strike him. As before that, Cole Custer would have a tire issue. And then Austin Cindric in the lead would have a tire issue. A foreshadowing of what would happen later in the race with a Penske teammate. Then a few laps later, it seemed like a pit crew error on like lap 90 on Eric Jones's team, and Eric Jones would lose the right front tire into turn 3, and he would smack the wall hard, and that would end his day. That caution would cause most of the field to pit, and Ryan Blaney would stay out, and he would gain them a playoff point by winning stage 2. Ryan Blaney would concede the lead. He would go down pit road to pit for fuel, and that would let Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin have the 1-2 spots. Eventually, they would lead some laps, and Larson was the one that was leading laps. But Larson would pit, and Denny Hamlin would also pit. They would stick into their strategy, and when that pit cycle would go through, that would eventually put Joey Logano on that strategy of pitting with his teammates out front. But remember earlier when I said another Penske car would have an issue? It was Joey Logano that had an issue, and he had a tire go down just like his teammate Austin Cindric did earlier in the race. And he wasn't able to hold a lead, and now it gives a lead to Bubba Wallace. Everybody knew Bubba Wallace was fast. I mean, he started second, and he was consistently staying in the top 10, and he was playing his strategy well. But there was concerns about him for fuel. There was also concerns about fuel for William Byron and some of the drivers up front. But with Bubba Wallace kind of saving fuel, and also him trying to drive his car to the win, Kyle Larson was closing in. And he got that gap down to almost 3.5 seconds. And it looked like Larson was going to catch Bubba Wallace, but instead, the caution would come out for rain with 5 laps to go. The rain would delay the race for less than an hour, but they were able to get it dry. It's funny how this race ended up kind of like Dover last week, where we got rain late, but NASCAR was able to dry up the track, which I'm happy with that because we were able to see the race finish under green. Which that would happen as Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson would restart side by side, and Bubba Wallace, to keep Kyle Larson from passing him, would have to have the restart of his life. And Bubba Wallace would have great restarts. The first one, he would be ahead of Larson, but there would be a wreck right behind him as Zane Smith and Tyler Reddick would be involved in an accident in the middle of the pack. I'll tell you, whenever you get a caution late, it's a guarantee that you're probably going to get multiple overtimes in this type of racing. Then on the final restart, Bubba Wallace would not only have enough fuel, but he had enough fuel to cross the finish line and win the race, and also do a little bit of a burnout at the end. So Bubba Wallace won, but William Byron ran out of fuel, and that dropped him all the way back to 16th, which that would help Chase Elliott in the points, because Chase Elliott wasn't having that good of a day here at Indy. But most importantly, Bubba Wallace won the race. Kyle Larson got second, and Denny Hamlin got third. We'll go for the top 10 in about a couple moments. But, yeah. Bubba Wallace snapped over 100 races winless streak. So, that was special. Also being the first crown jewel win for Bubba Wallace, as he's able to get it done at the Brickyard 400. And now we take a look at the top 10. As you see, as I talked about, Bubba Wallace won the race. His third win of his Cup Series career. He got Kyle Larson. Scored a top 2 finish in the last 2 years here. And then you got Denny Hamlin in third, Ryan Preece fourth, Brad Keselowski fifth, Todd Gilliland sixth. What a run for Todd Gilliland. Not usually up there in the top 10, but he scored a top 10 here at Indy. 7th place, Ryan Blaney came back from a speeding penalty he got later in the race, but he managed to work his way up to 7th. Then he got 8th place, Christopher Bell, 9th place, Alex Bowman, and Carson Hocevar 10th. Most of these drivers just gained a spot, mainly because William Byron ran out of fuel on the final lap. So now we take a look at the point standings. As you can see, Bubba Wallace has moved his way up because of that win. He's also moved himself out of that bubble spot, meaning that Ryan Preece has now got a bigger gap behind Chris Buescher, his teammate, to try to leapfrog to get into the playoffs. So it's now looking for more the guys below the cutoff line. They're going to need to win since Bubba Wallace did to get into the playoffs. So yeah, you had Bubba Wallace win that. And then for the regular season standings, Chase Elliott did not get as much points as William Byron did, and now he's only +4 ahead of William Byron. He was lucky that William Byron ran out of fuel because Byron would have had the regular season lead. But Chase Elliott was able to hold that lead going into Iowa next week. And now it is time for the interview. As FYI to the audience at home, Jakob's going to be on here once again. He's going to be a regular of my podcast, so he'll be on here and there. So it won't be a new guest as much, but I'm still going to try to get new people on here. But he's going to be on here for this episode, so he's going to give his best feedback about the Brickyard 400, his predictions for Iowa. So we're going to see what he has to say about it. And here he is. Okay, welcome back to the Double D podcast, Jakob. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How you doing today, Daniel?
Busy, but, going with the flow. Okay, So, we just had one of the biggest crown jewels of the year, the Brickyard 400, couple days ago. Bubba Wallace winning that race. Pretty insane race of how it was going. Overall, what was your reaction about the quality of the race? Was there any, big details that you wanted to share about the Brickyard 400 going on?
First off, I just want to say hello again. As you can see, I'm on my evening commute.
Yep.
Driving right now.
Yep.
I kind of tuned in and out of the race because I was doing other stuff this weekend, but I watched the end, which I feel like was the most exciting part. I actually tuned right as Joey Logano blew his tire, which was incredible. So it was perfect timing. So that was pretty funny, but what I saw and heard, the Cup cars, per usual, had issues with passing. It was just a game of leapfrogging somebody on pit road and aero blocking, which was kind of disappointing because the racing in Xfinity was pretty good in my opinion. And there goes my phone. The racing in the Truck Series at that short track that's in Indianapolis was also pretty good. So it was kind of disappointing that the cars once again had aero issues, but not bad overall, I guess.
I mean, you could tell, in between the Xfinity and the Cup cars, when you're watching the Xfinity series, drag is not really affected that much. You can still try to make good passes, but with these Cup cars, especially at the super speedways, it really exposed that when you got behind somebody. I think Eric Jones was trying to make a pass on Tyler Reddick at the beginning of the race, and he just got really loose and up the track. And if you would have done that in Car to Tomorrow or the Gen 6, that would not have been an issue.
No, and I've said this before, not on this thing before, but just in general, that the Xfinity cars are essentially more similar to the old Cup cars than modern Cup cars are. Modern Cup cars are their own beast of their own now. It's just a game of aero blocking, which I'm really not a fan of. But Daniel, I forgot to message you when he won, but I'm sure you were really pleased because your favorite driver finally made it back to victory lane after so long. I am very glad that you got to cherish that moment.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I got really emotional about Bubba Wallace. I was literally crying, like whenever LeBron James won an NBA Finals for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I felt that moment. It was empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Psych! I was disappointed, but it's whatever. I mean, Bubba Wallace, I'm not really that big of a fan of him, but I'd take him over Denny Hamlin or Joey Logano any day.
I was surprised because I know like when he got his rain win, a lot of people complained, and I don't remember what his other one was, but I remember people complaining. But I went on social media expecting people to be complaining, and it was all people like being like genuinely happy for him, and like there was like, oh, I'm here for the bad comments, but there's literally no bad comments. Like everybody being genuinely like good people and actually being like, yo, like this kid earned this win. And I agree. Like, I'm not a big fan of him, but I thought he did an incredible job, especially I believe he only took 2 tires on that last stop, so to be able to hold off Kyle Larson on 4 tires, I mean, that's pretty cool, especially to win at a crown jewel race. And you know, I think it was a eye-opening race for him. I think he finally realized that he has the ability to get up there and compete with some of these guys. I mean, I think him getting outdone by Reddick for a while kind of really decimated his confidence. So see him get a win in 2025 before Reddick is definitely not something I would have expected.
Yeah, interesting statistics with Bubba Wallace winning the Brickyard 400. He's now has more crown jewel wins than Chase Elliott. He got a win before Tyler Reddick this year. Those are some couple interesting stats. And a crazy thing, too, I saw on X. There was a guy in the stands that was throwing a beer can on the track to stop Bubba Wallace.
Yep. And they didn't throw the caution, which is kind of funny.
I saw the clip and I died laughing. I thought it was hilarious.
I always wondered, like, I've always been surprised that it doesn't happen more often, because especially like when I went to New Hampshire, like the fence is not that hard to throw something over, especially if you get like right up to the fence, you can easily lob something into the track and cause a caution. And like with the crowd of people that are there, they're never going to figure out who threw it. So.
Yeah, I mean the crazy thing is, you know, if I don't want Logano to win at Gateway, maybe I'll bring a banana peel. For the banana man.
It reminded me of I think it was called like Bottlegate or whatever. I don't remember what his name was, but that driver back in the day that threw a freaking water bottle out of his car mid-race, and it was like, oh, I don't know, that was debris, man. I don't know where that came from. Caused a caution.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that clip, but I do kind of remember that.
I forget who that was.
But yeah, so talk about the Brickyard 400. Honestly, with my opinion about like Brickyard 400, I thought strategically it was a really interesting race because there was people like changing for the lead. You had tons of like tire blowouts. Cindric was leading quite a bit of laps, and usually he doesn't do that in most of the races. And he blew a tire earlier in the race. And then you had Joey Logano trying to go on the same strategy as Cindric and just blew a tire as well. And then here's the impressive thing about Bubba Wallace. I saw some people commenting saying that he won that race based off of luck. That is not true. He qualified second. He stayed in the top 10 for most of the day. And he was playing the strategy game right. So, in my opinion, I think he earned that win.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to hold off Kyle Larson the last 2 overtimes.
Especially in one of the greatest paint schemes of all time, to win in that is just peak cinema. I mean,
you know what else is great? Low taper fade. It's massive.
It truly is.
It is. You know what else is massive? The $1 million that Ty Gibbs won for the in-season challenge. What are your thoughts about that? He beat out Ty Dillon. It was anticlimactic. Ty Dillon was already taken out by earlier damage in the race. But thoughts on Ty Gibbs winning? Do you think this will give him some momentum? possibly in the season?
That was a good transition. I kind of expected the ending to be very anticlimactic when you had Joe Gibbs' car versus literally like a top 25 car at best. And I feel like Indy typically doesn't have that many cautions. And it's one of those tracks where you have to have a good car to stay on the lead lap. So I knew unless something crazy happened to Gibbs, he was going to win that. But it's very funny that he won that challenge before winning the race. That's got to be just a weird feeling to win a challenge of beating out all these other drivers that have won so many races, and you haven't been able to win one. So I thought that was pretty funny. As far as momentum goes, I mean, he's going into, I forget what road course is coming up. It's either, I think it's after Iowa.
It's Watkins Glen.
Watkins Glen, and if he can somehow best SVG on strategy, I feel like that could be a strong spot for him. And just based off of what I've seen of him from road courses this year, I think he's been pretty strong. I mean, if you look at his teammates' cars too, I mean, they've been strong everywhere. So I think they just need to give him better equipment, give him some good stuff for one of the races, and I think focus all their effort on one of his cars. I think he could pull out a win. But then again, you never know.
We'll have to see. Honestly, this is going to be a hot take, but I think Ty Gibbs' best chances of winning are only at restrictor plate tracks, because I think it's going to be difficult to beat SVG at any road courses. With the dominance as he's shown this season, the only one that he didn't win was at Coda.
I would say the restrictor plate tracks would be one of the hardest when you consider the manufacturer dominance that Ford has and the lack of cars that Toyota has. It's a lot harder for them to work together, especially if it comes to like a wreck fest at the end, and you consider that like there's typically even less at that point, because then they're wrecked out, and like you got Ty Gibbs on the front row. There's no way if there's a Chevy or Ford behind them, they're going to push him. They're just not going to.
That's true. But I mean, I've seen a few times too where you would have like the Ford and the Chevys like mess themselves up by getting involved into their own mess, and then you see somebody like either Denny Hamlin or Tyler Reddick win. And that's something I can see possibly Ty Gibbs doing.
Yeah, I can see that.
What else I was going to talk about? Yeah, and it's funny just how like one of the Nepo babies of the sport was actually the one winning $1 million, or if you consider Ty Dillon that too, they both were in the mix for getting $1 million.
I know, it's also ironic their names were both Ty.
Yeah, interesting stat as well. There was only, besides Ty Gibbs, there was only 2 other drivers in NASCAR history to win an exhibition race before they won an actual race. Michael Waltrip won the All-Star race back in 1996. Before he won the Daytona 500 in 2001. And then Mike Skinner won 2 exhibition races in Japan and never won a cup race. So those are some stats that I had to get out. Okay, so next topic. Breaking news a couple hours ago. Austin Hill, after getting involved in an incident with Eric Almirola, spinning him on purpose, is suspended for 1 race and has his playoff points all taken away. I was watching the end of that Xfinity race, and I feel like it's a similar situation to what it was with Chase Elliott in 23 and Bubba Wallace in 22, where he got a little roughed up and he just turned right hooked Eric Almirola into the wall. And you could clearly see it with the white gloves on. Bad day to be wearing white gloves. But what were your thoughts about the incident? Do you think you think he should have been punished more, or do you think it should have been less of a punishment? Do you think it was the right call by NASCAR? What do you think of the whole thing?
I personally think they should have given him an award.
Why do you say that?
Because, I mean, he's one of the greatest in the sport, and he's not going to get roughed up. He's the next Dale Earnhardt.
Oh my gosh, he wants to be. The only way I'd give him a reward is if he wrecked Joey Logano or somebody like that. Now that I'd give him an award for.
What happened was when he got hit, his steering wheel came off, and then he put it back on, but then it was like crooked. So he's like, "Oh no, my steering wheel's crooked, so I need to turn it to the left and fix it." And then he turned into the 19.
Oh boy, that is. Really sus.
That comes straight.
Really sus.
That comes straight from Denny Hamlin on his podcast.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay. So, but in all honesty, do you think NASCAR made the right call?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting, too, because I don't foresee him getting into the championship war now that he's lost all of his playoff points. He's going to be starting at literally nothing, which I'm fine with because I honestly don't even think he's really – I honestly think he's a waste of a championship war spot. Like, he's good on restrictor plates, and then he's, like, average everywhere else. So when it comes down to Phoenix, he's basically just taking a spot from somebody that could actually – do better there, in my opinion.
I agree, and to be honest, if this was last year, if Atlanta was still in like the playoffs, he'd probably advance because he's really only good at like the restrictor plate tracks. And honestly, I mean, a lot of people could probably agree on me, but I can tell that compared to Austin Hill, compared to most of the other drivers, it's just really immature with his decision making on track. And I think hopefully with this one race suspension can really like teach him a lesson to become like be a better character behind the wheel. I mean, I know you had, like, Kyle Busch back then getting into stuff, but not like this. Well, besides maybe that truck race in 2011. But, I mean, at least Kyle Busch has skill to back it up. Austin Hill, not really. Only at plate tracks.
I think honestly, for, like, the championship for an Xfinity, I think it's going to be, just because of that, I don't think he's going to make it. And I think it's going to be, like, the year Ty Gibbs won as far as who gets in. I think it's going to be 3 junior motorsports cars. And then a random Joe Gibbs car. I'm gonna guess the 54.
I say to run that Connor Zillage is on. I think he has a good shot of winning the title this year.
I think it's gonna be it's probably gonna be between him and the 7.
Yeah, that'd be
Without
interesting. That'd be peak cinema.
Really, it would be.
All right.
Yeah, I love Connor. He's a good kid.
So we gave our opinions about the Austin Hill situation. I believe NASCAR made the right call. I mean, they had to give the same penalty to Chase Elliott and to Bubba Wallace. But I sure wish they would actually hold Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano accountable when they rough drivers up themselves. I mean, if you look at Denny Hamlin back at Pocono with Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson, anybody else, that'd be a suspension because that's at a high-speed track.
I mean, I would consider it, similar to like a real life situation. Like, let's say you're driving on a road and it's like 25 mile per hour road. I would compare that to like a short track where it's not as fast as speeds. If you bump into somebody, like there's gonna be some damage, but you're not really putting their life at risk. But then you consider like you're on the highway. You're going like 90 miles an hour, and you decide, I have a good idea. I'm going to left hook somebody. You are, at that point, trying to kill somebody with a deadly weapon. And I would say it's the same thing with NASCAR. If you're intentionally left hooking somebody at a track where you're going like 180 into a corner, that's clearly not safe. And I think NASCAR, they don't want to see anyone else die.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, too, last year, I believe Austin Dillon should not have gotten punished. I mean, it does sound crazy because he did dump Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano, but it was at a short track. It wasn't like it was at a track like where Austin Hill, Chase Elliott, and others were.
Yeah, that was also their fault, too, because Joey Logano was just in the way, and then Denny Hamlin was also just in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean,
you know,
they should have just let him keep the playoff points, too, because a lot of people like Logano Hamlin, and I bet everybody cheered when that moment happened.
I agree.
All right. So, okay, enough talking about, like, the Austin Hill stuff and all those situations. Next week, coming up, is Iowa Speedway. We are going back here, but this time it's going to be raced in the daytime. So, I believe only, like, Cup and the Xfinity's racing. Is the trucks racing there? I don't remember.
Racing where?
Iowa.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I mean, I really only give, like, the coverage to, like, the Cup Series most of the time, but I'll have to look that up. But, well, for the Cup Series...
You should become an ARCA-only podcast.
ARCA only. I wonder how many views are going to get that. Probably none. But, all right, so Iowa. So, I believe Larson's going to win. because if you noticed, Larson, I think he was going to win last year, but he just, whenever he spun, he couldn't get that round back. And I feel like if he can keep the car from crashing, and he showing that he was really good at short tracks like Bristol and other places, I have a good feeling he's going to win this race. What do you think, Saucy? Called you by your gamer name.
I feel like yeah, I can see that happening. I think he's been not as typical. It's weird because everybody's saying he's not as typical himself, but he's still, in my opinion, he is. He's either finishing in like the top 5 or he's wrecking, which is pretty much how he's always been. So I think he's kind of been slowly building his momentum back up to winning. I mean, finished second last week. So I could see that happening, but then again, I don't really know his stats at Iowa. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Blaney went back-to-back there, just because they seem to have a pretty good setup there.
Yeah.
So I think if they bring a similar setup, they could do pretty well.
Well, if you think about it, this is only like the Cup Series second race at Iowa. They have had the Xfinity and the trucks over there for years, but I mean, of course, with the next gen, it's a complete different.
Yep. I do like that track, though. It's a good track.
Yeah. All right, and a lot of grooves, too, but I'm not sure how it's going to be in the daytime. I wonder if the racing will be better or worse. Because I know tires are probably going to wear more since the track's going to be hot.
Probably. I have one more thing to add for the 21 suspension. Austin Dillon is testing his new ride.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Austin Dillon will be driving. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for mentioning that.
He will be. You're welcome. He will be. He should be booted down there anyway. So he's just testing it out.
Highly agree. Okay, so last question for the podcast. So, of course, when you were first on here, of course, I ask every new NASCAR fan that I introduce on this podcast what their favorite die-cast is. Tongue twisters today are getting me. But, so here's what I'm going to ask you. Since you're regularly on here, was your favorite paint scheme from Indianapolis this weekend?
I just prefer the same as yours, the Bubba Wallace win.
The Bubba Wallace win. I'm not gonna lie, that car is really overrated. Not as bad as other paint schemes he ran in the past. Notably one he ran in 2020 in Martinsville. But I mean, it was an okay paint scheme compared to that. But still
I don't like how
it's
not symmetrical. I don't know, maybe they got rid of the rule, but I thought that NASCAR paint schemes in Cup had to be symmetrical. But I could be totally wrong. I just remember that being like a thing where like you couldn't have a car that was different colors on 2 different sides. But like, I don't know, that just irks me. That's not symmetrical. I would say there was three paint schemes that I really liked. 2 of them were new, especially to the cars they were on. So the one of them was the 21 car and the PPG car.
Yes, that was my favorite one of the weekend.
That was a really nice car. And he was up front all day too, which is pretty cool. Or at the end. I also really liked the Chris Buescher Diet Cherry Coke car. That car is very nice in that like purple color.
More of Baja Blast, but it was okay.
And I just like the Larson Indy car. I think it looks better on the 17 in the Xfinity series, but I am kind of glad that he's not doing, hopefully, Indy anymore, because that'll just leave room for potentially, like, patriotic ride again down the road and maybe something else.
Yeah.
So that'll be nice. It's not a bad paint scheme. I just think that the hype of it, to me, it's like there was so much hype for it, and then it was just, like, so disappointing both seasons that he ran that car, like, actually at Indy. Like, or like for the double at Charlotte. So to me, it doesn't. I mean, obviously he won in it at Indy, but it's not as. I don't know. Like it's weird because he never actually completed the 1,100 laps. So to me, it doesn't mean much. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with that. Yeah. So that was some interesting takes from you, Jacob. This is the end of like the interview. Thank you for joining once again. I'll definitely have you on again some other time. Great conversation about the Brickyard 400. See you next time. Have a nice night.
Later. I'm going to continue my drive home.
All right. Stay safe. Don't text and drive, bro. Now, that was some interesting takes from Jakob. Now, here we are to my Iowa predictions. So, I predict this week, I think Kyle Larson's going to win. I think he would have won last year if it wasn't for him spinning. But I have a feeling he has got a good chance of winning the race. It's supposed to be during the daytime. It's supposed to be sunny. And we know how he's good on worn out tires and stuff. As long as he doesn't wreck himself, he'll be good and he'll win the race. Alright, and that is it for this episode, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys for the watch party for Iowa and for the podcast next week. Have a nice night.